We are officially back, my friends. Welcome to another brand new episode of Rated G. I am the host, G. Derrado. uh, if you are new here, whether you're listening or tuning in through YouTube, welcome to the podcast. Here, I like to have honest discussions revolving around art, creativity, the pursuit of arts as a career, being a small business, all that, and as well as talking about just real life stuff. So, if you enjoy this episode, please like and subscribe. If you are watching, please subscribe to my channel because I do post other videos, other types of content. So if you subscribe and ring that notification bell, you'll know for sure when something new drops. And if you're just listening, same thing. Please follow or subscribe. That way you know when a new episode of this podcast comes out. And if you want to keep up with me on social media, you want to see some of my art, and just know like day-to-day updates, you can follow me on Instagram and you can shop for art. Both links are provided below. Um, yeah, so I want to clarify, I'm emphasizing that we are officially back because although I did post my 200th episode recently, that one was actually really just a warm up, I'll say. It was a warm up episode, and who better to do it with my dear good friend and fellow artist Nick Makoviak making his eighth appearance. Um, love that guy, honestly. Just always a good time. But I will say, like that episode, it didn't have to go out. Like we were talking about it before recording, like, yeah, we're just gonna really just have a digital hang. Whether I put it up as an episode or not, it didn't matter to him, and it didn't really matter to me either. But I'm like, like why not, man? Content is content, and I always do feel there are valuable gems in our conversations, especially between Nick and I. So if you haven't checked that out, yeah, give it a go. Timestamps, okay? Timestamps are provided. So if you only want to listen to certain topics, you could always just check that out in the description. But yeah, it has been a couple months, my friends. And yeah, so actually, because for the sake of YouTube, because I do check my analytics, and according to the stats, it seems like I get majority of my viewers and all that. They're new. They're usually new. So I saw a two-digit number for returning viewers. So I will say, if you've been here before, thank you for coming back. Um, but yeah, for the majority, it's usually new people checking out what I'm putting out there. So yeah, so I thought maybe I'll just do a quick reintroduction of myself. Um, because I'm a nobody. I'm a regular Joe. I got no status on the internet. You can tell by my YouTube subscriptions. I'm close to 500. So if I can get to 500 by the end of this year, that'd be great. If not, whatever, man. As long as I'm getting new subscriptions and just new people to share my passions with, that's awesome. And same thing with audio. I every now and then I would check the Spotify stats, and they're not great. I will be honest. Uh, I again, I would have to check. Maybe I'll check in a moment, but yeah, it's usually like it's not a lot. It's not a lot. It's definitely less than my YouTube stats, and that's fine. It is what it is. Uh, What was I gonna say though? So yeah, let me reintroduce myself because if you are new here, I am a nobody, and you might just be here out of curiosity, and maybe I've lost you already. Um, but so I am an artist. I mainly work in traditional mediums, but I occasionally do a little, digital illustration. I mainly work in graphite, ink, and watercolor, marker sometimes. Um, and yeah, I'm kind of all over the place in terms of themes or categories of arts. I am not the singular and niche type of artist. I create art of things that I just love and enjoy, and so a lot of time, well, I'll say right now, I've been doing a lot of fan art, fan fiction art. That's like stuff that I enjoy and just, share with other people and have made a lot of great connections and sales because mutual love of, cartoons, TV, film, all of that. So I do work on a lot of fan art. I also, I don't know if it it sounds too pretentious to say I specialize in stylized portraits, but I do love creating portraits as well, and not your typical hyper realistic portraits, which is amazing, and I'd love to get to that level. Yeah, maybe at some point, we'll see. But I really do love the style of cross hatching, um, with for shading. So yeah, I always call it stylized portraits. And yeah, so there's a couple more things. What I call pareidolia art, or perhaps reverse pareidolia art. If you're not familiar with pareidolia, that term, it's basically like when you would stare at something. The example I always use is like if you're staring at a cloud, and that cloud, the shape, it reminds you of something else, like a teddy bear or something. That's pareidolia. So I sometimes call it reverse pareidolia art because the references I use for the artwork, uh, with the pieces that I sell, it's they're landscapes, pareidolia landscapes, but my approach to them is always in reverse, where this was during quarantine, so I would just take pictures of in my hands or whatever, and then I would turn that photo into a landscape, and it's just been like a really fun experience sharing with at least local shoppers, because they're thinking they're buying a landscape, which it is, but I always tell them the inside. I'm like, yeah, you're actually staring at my hand, and it becomes this great sort of like not immersive, but like it's just like, being able to connect in that way, be like, oh, I never, just exposing that kind of uh neat detail. Anyway, so that's why I call this category of art pareidolia, or reverse pareidolia art. And lastly, if I feel strongly about something, if I want to put a message out there, I usually go into the um dystopian theme. I think the reasons and inspirations are obvious. But yeah, it's very much like the Matrix. People also would describe it as like cyberpunk. But yeah, it's very much, post-apocalyptic, dystopian, uh, world. And so yeah, but that one's like, I don't dive into that too much. Like I just recently did well, not recently, but this summer I had a little solo exhibit to showcase my ongoing series, and it's been a while since I revisited it because it's so tasking on my on my mental health. It's a very personal series, so like when I go, it just I can't, it's like not, it's something I can't do consistently, otherwise I'm gonna be fucking miserable. But so yeah, that's the type of work I do. My history. I'll share my educational history is that I did major in media arts and animation. So that's why if you're watching on YouTube, my my channel is called Media Arts and G Torado. It used to be Art of G Torado, which is actually my LLC, but on this platform at least, like I do because of my major and even before my major, I've always enjoyed filming, making home movies with my friends and, just editing and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's why it's called Media Arts and G Torado. Um, um, what else? I'm a New Jerseyan at heart, but have been living down in Richmond, Virginia for almost 4 years now, which is pretty crazy. Um, and it's been nice. And you know what? There's been ups and downs, of course, right? It's part of life, but yeah, I think overall, I like the city. I like the art community. And yeah, I mean, I met some great people, so I just yeah. I don't know where I'm going with that. So, yeah, I hope that's enough. Yeah, I hope that's enough there. I don't want to go down too far into a tangent with that. So crazy, man. It's been 5 years since I've been doing this podcast. And yeah, the fact that we're at 201 episodes in. But yeah, I feel like every year I do take a little hiatus, and I feel like this one may be one of the longest breaks I've taken. And I mean, to be honest, well, I'll get into the reason why I took a break in a minute. I first want to talk about why I started this podcast 5 years ago. And I mean, the three main reasons, I'll break it down to just the three main reasons is, they make it's fun content, especially when I have guests. So it makes fun content, valuable content, if I may say so myself. And networking, it's a great way to network. So again, going back to guests, I generally like to have guests that are creatives. So you don't have to be a visual artist, a fine artist, or you don't have to be any specific type of artist to be on the podcast. Like, I'm generally am curious and interested in a lot of art forms, but also you know, not to be what's the word? I don't want to exclude people that are not artists. Like I like to have other people on that may have different pursuits or careers just to, again, it's just, I hate to say it, but it's really much like the Joe Rogan approach. Whereas like if I'm not gonna have an artist or a creative on, but I have somebody else that's like something else that does something else, it's just because of my general interest. So yeah, that's just kind of how I curate. Would that be the right way? That's how I book my guests. But typically they are artists and creatives. So yeah, I figured this is a great platform um to share with other creatives, to especially like small business owners like myself that are just trying to expand. And yeah, so I use this as a tool to help uplift small business owners like myself, or just like aspiring artists or aspiring entrepreneurs. So that's reason number two. And then the third reason is talk therapy. If I'm being 100%, I was gonna say 100 and something, but to be like completely honest, is it's talk therapy. Which I feel is slowly becoming less necessary for me. And I'll get into that at the end. But it really was, yeah, it was. I've used this as a tool to just express my thoughts on certain things, whether just personal experiences or just from watching the world go by. Um, yeah, so that's the third reason there. Now I took a break, a 2 month break. I think the last episode, uh, well, the last episode before I took a break that aired like September 3rd or something like that. So, um, yeah, and what it really comes down to when it comes to when I decide to take these like short breaks or long breaks, I don't know, depending how you take it. It felt long for me, but I tend to take these breaks because it's just, well, one, I did have uh I did have an episode for 200 like recorded, edited, and so for full transparency, I've been using for the last 5 years. I've been using iMovie to edit my podcasts. And if you were to go through my dialogue, they're long. A lot of them are long. I will blame myself for that, you know, because I'm very long-winded. So if I go on a tangent, grab the popcorn. Uh, um, but yeah, some episodes with guests, especially, they have easily exceeded 90 minutes. Some of them are uh 3 hours, 4 hours. I've had 5 hour sessions split into two a couple of times. So yeah, I'm just assuming iMovie and maybe my computer too, but iMovie was just not cooperating. It was not exporting the video version of the original episode for 200. It did the audio no problem, because it's a smaller file, but man, when it came to the video form, it was just not doing it. And I was like, all right, maybe I need to switch. Maybe I need to switch softwares, use something else. So that was one reason. And then the second reason, which is this is a regular reason for these hiatuses, these breaks, is that it's mentally draining and exhausting when you're just doing everything single-handedly. So I've talked about this on numerous episodes about just, yeah, like I'm a one-man team. I'm a one-man, uh yeah. I do everything myself. I book everything. I, edit, review, make clips, everything, all right? Thumbnails, like I do everything. So it gets yeah, it becomes exhausting. And it was I said this was a needed break because I was certainly stretching myself a bit too thin. And then honestly, when um you notice like a shift, right? When you kind of steer too far away from the initial reason why you started this endeavor. So again, I'll get back to that. I'll go into that more towards the end because I kind of want to use this episode, um, this opportunity to just reflect, right? Because it's been 5 years. Like it's crazy. And again, I don't have a large following, but I still think that's a great achievement. As my buddy Nick says, that's not an achievement to what do you say, sneeze on or something like that. I didn't catch it on air, so I can't confirm, but like he was like, yeah, you can't sleep on that. Like 5 years, 200 episodes, like fuck. And it's so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pat myself in the back for just keeping it going despite some of the breaks I've taken. But yeah, I wanted to just kind of reflect a little bit. So uh the 5 year mark was actually in the beginning of August, right before COVID. Um, and yeah, what an interesting time because I was doing, obviously before quarantine, I was doing the podcast in person. Now it was never in the very beginning, it was strictly audio. And it wasn't until I got to episode 100 where I'm like, all right, maybe I need to I'm a late bloomer. Let me just start with that. I'm a late bloomer. So yeah, episode 100, I'm like, all right, I want to do something special with this one. Obviously, we're hitting a milestone here. And who better to have on the podcast for my 100th episode than my oldest sibling who put me on, like, not put me on this path, but has had a great impact, inspiration, uh for me to pursue what I'm doing now, because he's an artist, he's an animator, so yeah. It's a great episode, and that was a two-parter. So if you want to check that out, we get to talk about, we talk about family and just like, what it's like to be in the animation industry, especially like video game industry, but more so just the animation industry. Um, but so yeah, before doing the video, also like I mean, it was nice having guests. I would invite guests to my home. And if they were too far, I would actually go ahead and drive out to them and do the podcast on the road. And yeah, it was a fun experience. And so yeah, now here we are 5 years later. And it's just been awesome because not only, you know, doing things through Zoom, which don't get me wrong, I would love to get back to doing more um on location, like guests coming here. Um, I mean, if you're watching, like it didn't used to be like this. Like we're slowly getting some more furniture in our house that we've been living in for about a year now. So we're still trying to get some furniture to fill in the space, but yeah, slowly, getting there with this studio, and hopefully soon enough I will start having guests. Maybe, upgrade my filming equipment, and yeah, but doing this digitally through Zoom. It's been wonderful because I've had guests from other countries uh, beyond, and it's just been awesome, kind of getting the outside perspective. And well, when I say that, I mean in regards to the U.S. because we've definitely been. Yeah, let me digress. But yeah, it's just the overall experience has been wild. And so there are a few things that I've learned over the years, and I'll also say relearn. And that well, one thing's for sure. Um, I cannot, and I need to emphasize, I cannot, because this is something I've spoke about again numerous times on the podcast. Uh, I cannot get too high before or during recording. Because my energy, it just starts declining. Like I start becoming too chill, where I'm, to the point where I'm just kind of mumbling. I'm not succinct. The one of the last times I got really high with a guest, he thought I was falling asleep. Shout out to Marcus. Uh Marcus Vega Eisenhart, because he was just like, you dozing off? I forget what number that is, what episode number that is, but look for Marcus, an episode with Marcus. 'Cause it was, yeah. And it was part two. It was his second appearance, and I got too high. I think I got too comfortable, and I'm like, yeah, fuck it. Let me just like smoke up, and we'll just kind of make this like another like, just chill podcast. But I got way too way too chill. So that's why I need to remember, I gotta start leaving post-it notes on my monitor. But yeah, I can't get too high before or during. Um, Another thing that I've learned is that I gotta be m more mindful of my words. Um, because literally you never know who's listening, who's tuning in. Or I'll say I never know who's truly tuning in until they say something. Like sometimes I'll be like at a family gathering and they'll be like, "Yeah, I saw your podcast." And I'm like, "Oh, all right." So all these questions start going in my head. I'm like, "All right, did you see a clip? Did you actually listen or watch? How much did you tune into? What did you hear?" Like, so because I'm not gonna lie. Again, this is an honest platform, right? So yeah, sometimes things get a little spicy, a little too honest. And yeah, you never know if you're ruffling feathers until you're mildly canceled. Um oh man, but yeah, so I, moving forward, I really would like to maintain uh the mindfulness of my words without compromising my authenticity because I don't know. Because I like to be the wild boy, and just like, I don't give a fuck, blah, blah, blah. Like, I have those moments. But it depends on the context and the topic of discussion. But, yeah, so that's what I've learned is that it's highly beneficial when you're less, um, abrasive. What is that? Is abrasive? Am I saying that right? Um, my I used to have this phrase that I'm bad at words and I'm trying to be better. And that's you know what? I'll add another that's another reason why why I started podcasting because just like as I'm talking to other people and I'm catching some new words or just like words that I've never really considered using in my regular vocabulary. So um and according to Nick, I'm probably gonna be bringing Nick up a lot, but according to him, in one of his appearances, he had told me, and it's on record, it's on air, but he told me that in his opinion, that I was more succinct with these podcasts. So hey, progress. Another thing I learned over the years is and this is actually something I tend to relearn after reviewing the episodes is that the chemistry between myself and my guest is just it's so much better. Like or I mean the podcast is better when I actually have a natural uh good chemistry with my guests. Um and I say that because there have been times where if I see someone uh that I've met recently and I see something they post uh that I resonated with and I would kind of like impulsively, not sure that's a real word, but I would, you know what? I said this way long ago, but we can make up words here on the podcast too. No, but I would, yeah, sort of like impulsively in just give out invitations to these uh people because I liked what they shared or whatever. And I'll be honest, when it came coming to, when we would podcast, um like the chemistry sometimes isn't quite there. So like I had a guest on once and this one never aired. But I had a guest on I invited them because I found out that they were from Jersey and they loved comedy. Um, and I don't remember if they specified stand-up comedy or just comedy in general, but I saw, well, I perceived it as stand-up, and I do love stand-up comedy. Uh, so I was like, oh, maybe this seems like someone I could vibe with. They're a fellow New Jerseyan, um, so yeah, had them on, and overall it was good, but like it's just like the enter, like it, it felt like, well, I felt like I was running out of things to talk about. Like I couldn't in the moment think of any other interesting things to bring up. Because like I will say, when I have other creatives on the podcast, one of we do have a segment, um and it's the AI discussion. And yeah, so you know, I try to have like interesting segments or topics to talk about, even if they themselves aren't as privy to or just aren't well versed in it. I just like to get the general thoughts, uh, uh you know, on AI creations in general. But yeah, with this one, with this person, I think we covered that, and like, I don't know, it was fun, but I just feel like, I don't know, it just something about it was feeling a bit flat. So, again, just to emphasize, like, yeah, when there's like a real chemistry, um, that had developed not just through like one instance, like, we've spoke in person, and I would visit their table when, if they're doing an event and I'm not working at that event. Like that was the thing too. Like, here in here in Richmond, uh it's pretty saturated with pop-up markets, so you can't work all of them. But so yeah, when if there's a weekend where I'm not doing any events, but I have friends out there that are working, I'll make it a point to go visit them. And same thing applies with like even like um newer associates, or and yeah, like, well, you know what? It's networking. So I would make my rounds and network, and sometimes when that networking session is just feeling good, I'd be like, "Hey, you know what? I got a podcast if you ever want to be on it." And then yeah. So the chemistry, that is key. And it has to be like developed a bit. Like it can't just be like one good interaction, and then now you're on, and then who knows? Like I'd rather avoid that risk and just try to build some sort of rapport, all right, privately. But the last thing that I've um really learned is that captivating thumbnails actually do work. Like, and yeah, again, I'm a late bloomer, but once I started, you know, uh, it sort of like embellished the imagery a little bit. It kind of helped with the views a little. So I was like, all right, I gotta make these, because like, again, you go back in my catalog, and you look at the thumbnails, they're pretty bland, two headshots if it's with a guest, and it was just very much sort of like two-toned, like black and blue, because the Rated G logo is blue. Excuse me. Um, so yeah, it was pretty bland, and then slowly I would start kind of adding some things, and then yeah, it wasn't really till pretty recently, when I really started embellishing my thumbnails. um the numbers started showing, like, oh yeah, like, and I would grab tips from YouTube, and that was one of the things. So Yeah, you gotta sometimes, as much as you hate the game, you gotta play it sometimes, you really gotta play it. Um, but that being said though, because like that's like a love and hate thing I have currently with thumbnails is that I get it, they work when you sort of like, really you know, you just add more fun and more captivating things in your thumbnails, like visually. But like, I don't know. I get annoyed where like some content creators will throw in these like quotes or sayings, and it kind of makes you believe that like that's what that person said, and they will like really embellish the words. So be like, I don't know. I'd be like, oh, this TV personnel call this person a piece of shit. And then you watch the video and then you watch the original content, like like an interview, let's say, and it's like, oh, no one threw a cuss word at all. Like this person never said it in that like so it's just and this is I guess I'll just say that's me, right? I'm gullible. But yeah. So I dislike it strongly when thumbnails are too embellished. Like I'll say this. The reaction faces that are included in my thumbnails for my videos, those are real, right? They're screen capped from the footage. And if I'm throwing in words in there like quotations, like those are the actual words that are said. All right. So, again, I'm just yeah. I probably sound whiny as shit now, but whatever. So those are some of the main things that I've been again learning and relearning over time. And yeah, I guess I should really just start writing these down on my post-it notes and just start putting them on my monitor. Um, but after sort of looking back, moving forward, so obviously it's a given. We're always looking to improve. So I try, not so that I don't drag each topic out. Um, you know, I broke it down to three things that I'm really like focusing on, like hyper focusing on, um, to improve moving forward. Is that again going back to thumbnails? Got to keep creating captivating thumbnails, but also make it true, right? Like, what you see in my thumbnails, like that's what you're gonna get, right? If you see this face, if you're listening, you're missing out. You're missing out on all the facial cues and all that stuff. But for real, like if you're seeing like the shock face or a laughing face, because I'll say that's majority of my thumbnails for the podcast at least. I'm always smiling, always laughing. But those are all very like in the moments, captures. So and then like anything else that is being thrown in there, those are what are being discussed. So yeah, captivating but true, honest thumbnails. The second thing is my intros and my outros when I'm closing out on the episode. I think this in the today's intro was like a minute and 30, maybe almost 2 minutes. Um, I could take that. I would like to again, so I'm trying to shorten them because I want to get straight to the point. Again, I look at my YouTube stats, right? I like to see what the duration of my views are. And sometimes they're a little discouraging when I see that number. So I'm like, all right, I gotta just breathe this intro so I don't lose their interest because let's face it, our attention span is it's kind of questionable. Uh, but I don't know, maybe because I'm just naturally long-winded and wordy. It's just I like to try to make sure I get everything out. And if I rush through it, I'm gonna miss something or whatever, So always trying to improve my intros and outros, especially with guests. That's the thing. That's the thing too. Like when I'm doing introductions with guests, they can get a bit lengthy. Um, so yeah, so that's two. And then the last thing is just the topics and segments. I gotta make sure, these are, not only interesting, but also intriguing topics. Like I really just like to talk about everyday things, especially again when I do have artists on. Obviously, I want to advertise their craft, their product, their business, and kind of just like pick their brains about stuff and trying to like see, we're sharing perspectives, especially if we have different perspectives. Like I really do love, um, tapping into that and then talk about some, real world shit. It's really hard these days, but I do try to keep politics, like strict politics out. But it's hard these days, honest. Ooh, my voice just cracked. It's really difficult these days not to get into politics because it is affected by our politics. And, funny enough, this podcast is back after election. So, no, boy, boy, what a ride that was. But we're not going to get into that, right? Because this is not a political podcast. If anything, this is just a creatives podcast. Um, so yeah, my topics, and like segments, because sometimes, not all the times, but oftentimes, I will close out an episode with an inspirational or like a meaningful quote from someone, that I've been inspired by for years, or like just anything that feels, that I resonate with and believe that others will resonate as well. They're usually kind of philosophical. A lot of them are Bruce Lee. A lot of them are Bruce Lee, um, Anthony DeMello, and Steven Pressfield, I feel like. Um, but they they be spitting facts, as the kids say. Um, so yeah, I just you know, not to say that I'll come up with new segments because that was a thing, that was like a thing in the past. And it's like I was always trying to like figure out new exciting segments to keep the viewers and listeners attention. So, like, but that was, that became exhausting as well. Um but yeah, those are things I really want to continue to improve. And some things, I actually have several things I want to also focus on moving forward. Is like, now this is a lot of like self-forgiveness because I do take a lot of things to heart. Um, I always try to put the best stuff out there to my abilities, something I believe like a lot of people again will resonate with and relate to. Um, But yeah, but there's always improvement that could be made. So where are we at right now? Because we're about 44 minutes. I do want to work on keeping the duration of my podcast within the 80 and 90-minute duration. Now I surpassed that. I exceeded that on my last episode with Nick. It's very hard because he's one of those guests that like we'll talk for hours. And that's the thing too, is like the duration of my podcasts are just reflective of like the vibe, the chemistry between my guest and I. Like if we're really having a great time, it's hard for me to cut it just to be like, all right, let's wrap this up, and you know what I mean? Like, so I'm very much trying to work on easing out, right? So going back to like working on my outros Um, so I'm trying to be better about the length of my episodes because again, right? I'm a no one, I'm a nobody. Like I have no credible status on the internet. So like, I'm just like thinking like, yeah, who's gonna want to fucking listen to a 2 hour, 2.5 hour podcast? Um, you know, with these people that I don't know, right? Like that's how I'm kind of looking at it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have some close friends that will tune in every now and then, and I appreciate that. If you're one of them, hey, I see you. Um, I see you. I don't know. But so yeah, the duration, trying to I'm still working on it. But I'm not gonna make promises. I'll tell you that right now. Like if you see a new podcast drops and you look at the name and then you see, oh, it's 5.0 or 3.0, 8.0. Oh yeah. Expect this to be a quite lengthy episode because, you know, those are the people that I'm quite close with, very close with that tend to be that long. Um, so another, so some of these are actually kind of repeats of what I was discussing earlier, but one of the things is impulsive invitations, right? I already spoke about that. So again, I just gotta not get too caught up in the moment of networking with new people and then just be like, I'll be on my podcast. Um, because when that happens, actually, if this happens, the next thing is that I end up playing cat and mouse with some of these people. Now I totally get it. Like we're all busy. We all have busy lives. Um, so and some people are not ready for like a podcast debut. Like they've never done a podcast before. So I totally get the nervousness behind that, the anxiety behind that. I mean, I still have to overcome a certain level of anxiety, especially with a brand new guest that I don't know well. Like those are hard to, during before those recordings, I'm like, I'm smoking a bowl or I'm smoking a joint, and sometimes that anxiety will kind of like keep me away from getting too high. Um, but yeah, so the whole cat and mouse thing, yeah, like I just kind of have to like tell myself if I'm like reminding this person, this potential new guest, more than two times about hey, want to be on my podcast, like I just gotta be like, all right, after checking in on them, like the second time, I'm just gonna be like, all right, literally, you will come to me when you're ready. I'm gonna stop coming to you. And the only other reason I do that, I'll play cat and mouse, is because if I want somebody to come back, like if I really, really want somebody to come back. Two examples. One of them is my good friend, Gerson Lemos. Now he's in another country. He is in Portugal right now, and he's one that I will like. Whenever I catch him in the DMs and we're talking about something unrelated to the podcast, I'll be like, "Come on, man, you gotta come back to the podcast." Um, and the second person is Sarah Hyland or Sarah Hyland Rosenstein, but this is the OG Sarah Hyland, not Sarah Hyland from um, Modern Family. I think I'm talking about Sarah Hyland, um, comedian, um, artist, actress. She's been on Mad TV, uh, Punked. She's well known as Bobby Lee's ex-girlfriend. Um, but she she was another one that I've like sort of nagged. Like I was really bugging her to come back because she's really someone that I really look up to in terms of humility and just like, yeah, honestly, it's her humility. Like I find her such an authentic person, and of course she's an artist and she's funny. Like am a fan of her craft. So I'm like, man, just to spend like, if I can get an hour out of her, that'd be amazing. And I've been very fortunate to share the platform with her twice. I would love to have her back on, but I'm gonna be better about respecting her space and her boundaries. She is a busy woman, so yeah, no more playing cat and mouse. Even if I really, really want someone back, I gotta let's chill. I gotta be able to catch myself in the moment and be like, all right, hold on, put the brakes on, because we've been here before. So, uh, another thing is no more getting down on myself for doing too many solo pods, because that was like a thing. Like, I know some people enjoy podcasts where there's two hosts, right? Or a host and a guest. Like I know I enjoy podcasts in that format. But, again, sometimes it's hard to book a person every week or whatever. So, um, and before, like, leading up to the hiatus, like I think I had like what, five, maybe six solo podcasts put out, and then just decided to go take a break. So yeah, I gotta stop getting I gotta stop shaming myself for doing quote unquote too many solo pods. Like, obviously, if the viewer or listener is uninterested, or feels is just feels turned off by that, like, whatever, right? You do whatever you want. um so that, and then also, talking about feeling shameful, notes. All right. I don't want to say I feel maybe shameful is not the right word, but sometimes I feel a little conflicted. And I think it's because of the vibe, especially when I have guests on. You know, they I feel they often feel like it's like there were no notes, like no real preparation, right? Because sometimes I've had people be like, all right, yeah, what are we gonna talk about? And or like they'll ask me like, oh yeah, what kind of questions will you be asking? And it's like, they really believe it's gonna be like a formal interview. I'm like, no, 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 no. This, like, obviously there's gonna be questions. It might feel like an interview, but it's really because we are literally two people getting to know each other. So when you're getting to know somebody, you gotta ask questions, right? But not in that sort of like formal way, like an interview, like a strict interview. Um, but I use notes, and I've actually said this on, I don't know how many times, but I've definitely clarified that I do rely on notes, and that's honestly part of the exhaustion, which I'll again I'll be getting into at the end. But yeah, I use notes because I said before, I'm long-winded. I go on rants, I go on tangents. I need notes to look at the side of my screen and be like, oh, hey, we have some shit we really want to talk about. So don't get it twisted, all right? If you're tuning in right now and I've reached out to you about being on the podcast, know that I do take notes, all right? Um, so yeah, you're not, I do not I do not require my guests to have any preparations other than just to, make sure you're ready and be present. That's it, right? That's the only like preparation to have. Um, and just be ready to really talk about yourself and, like, market yourself, promote yourself, advertise, all of the above. Just make sure you're ready to talk about yourself in a lengthy time. This is a long form conversation podcast. So yeah, I use notes, no shame. um and then what else? We got a couple more. Uh share Okay, yeah. So I was talking about being exhausted from note taking, and I say that because yeah, I guess like just as of recent, like I was, if you were to go through my podcast notes, man, like so much shit, a lot of shit gets edited, like taken out and added. And yeah, it got like it got exhausting because I was trying to, especially with my solo episodes, I was just like, I was just so tuned in to social media, trying to find topics to talk about because honestly, I don't know, I guess I just felt my life is just not exciting enough. I just been um just working and living. That's why how I always break it down when someone asks how I've been or what I've been up to. I'm just like, I'm just working and living, man. You know? Working on trying to come up with new ideas for new artwork, working on commission art, um, trying to book events to work at, working on house projects because we just got this house about a year ago. And like that's pretty much it. Like my socializing in terms of like real life socializing out there, like it only happens when I'm working at pop-up markets, festivals, or flea markets. That's where I get my dose. Other than like a few occasional social gatherings, family gatherings, right? But yeah. So and this kind of ties in with the talk therapy thing, but yeah, like just trying to stay relevant. Um, that became really exhausting for me. And this actually kind of um this is actually like a segue to my last thing for moving forward is just like um I don't know why I put this on myself, but I've always made it an obligation to, and I guess in order to grow, but I've always made this obligation of like I gotta have something every week. That's what all the big time podcasts do. They always have an episode, shit, two episodes if they have a Patreon, which I have a Patreon, but it's been inactive for a few years. But I mean, you got these big time podcasters banking in like all these episodes to keep up with the weekly shit. And I it's hard for me to it's been difficult for me to be able to work at in that pace. And I guess that's like one of those, it's one of those telling moments of like, yeah, like why are you doing that? Why are you doing that to yourself? This is not how you can operate efficiently. It works for the big time boys and gals, but for you, small fry, just do what you can without completely exhausting yourself. And that's what happened. I got exhausted trying to, you know, I'm like writing all these notes on things to discuss and whatever because just I felt my life was too boring to just do a podcast on. But fuck it. Um, so yeah, I just podcast when I can or when I want to, not when I have to. That's at least what my note says. It says go back to podcasting when I want to, not when I have to. Thumbs up. I'm giving myself a thumbs up for that. And there is a side note is that not to just have an episode for the week, right? That's what I just said earlier. And yeah, it's true. Like I just if I have a week with no episode, like whatever, man. Sure, viewership for my channel or my podcasts, it may be affected, but like sure, the only control I have for that is just like post, put something out there. But so, yeah, I gotta like be able to manage and know, like just be better about, my self-awareness of when I'm stretching too thin. So, and that was the thing. Like during these past 2 months, I really had just focused on creating art and working at the events that I had already booked and commissions. The commission work that I've been working on has definitely taken a great portion of my time. So I guess like now I feel like things are kind of slowing down, and yeah, I feel like that's not allowed me to think, but just yeah, it helped me. I don't know what the words I'm trying to think of. I am struggling now. This is when you know I'm at the end of the episode. No, but yeah, just like now that's like I haven't been booking as much events. I mean, it's the holidays, right? We're nearing the holidays, so I haven't been booking as many events as I typically would have there, like throughout the year. I really just had been focusing mainly on getting these commissions done and yeah, I guess just like focusing on the ideas and not so much on the execution. Um, but that's that I plan on doing another episode on future projects, art projects. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We're about an hour in. All right. That's actually kind of typical for a solo podcast, honestly. Depending on topics. Sometimes I generally do an hour of just me sharing updates or whatever. Unless something's spicy. If I'm feeling spicy, then we kind of get close to the 80-minute mark or 90-minute mark. Sometimes even the 2 hour mark. But yeah, I think that's enough. I think that's enough for this episode. Um, but yeah, I do plan on sort of backlogging some episodes so that I can kind of, I guess up, keep damn, again, I'm losing the words. The words aren't coming to me as easily now. I think I'm burning out. But yeah, I plan on pre-recording some episodes, solo episodes until I can start booking people. But again, it is, I'm real honestly because again, we're nearing the holidays, so that's why I'm backlogging on. Ooh, voice cracked again. I'm backlogging on some solo episodes so that when the time is right, um, and some of the people I've spoken to about appearing on the podcast, like they'll be ready after the season. So yeah, so if you're listening right now, if you're tuning in right now, expect the next few episodes to be just you and I, you and me, okay? So yeah, that being said, if I may plug real quick because as I've said in the beginning, I do run a business, an art business. So if you want to shop for artwork, I do have my the link to my main website, which is also an online store. I really got to push that because I don't really push my online shop. But if you want to shop for some artwork, you can visit. I have a Square site, so the link is provided below, as well as my social media. I'm mainly active on Facebook and Instagram. It's really Instagram. Um, and yeah, as far as commission goes, I am closed for right now, and I have a couple of new clients that I'm working with during the springtime. So I probably won't be open till the summer. So, but just keep that in mind. If you're interested on personalized custom artwork, you could always come to your boy. Um, I mean, it doesn't hurt to hit me up, now. We could always talk about it now and then, you know, execute later. Anyway, now you're aware of my services. Um, and yeah, that's about it, guys. Yeah, if you've been tuning in up to this point, I appreciate you, especially new listeners, new viewers. Again, I welcome you to the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, again, welcome to the channel, and of course, welcome back to and thank you for the returning listeners and viewers. And that's it, guys. Again, working on my outros. So that being said, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay driven because the new year is upon us. And I hope to catch you on the next one. Peace out, folks.